What? Did I just see Shams Charania tweet out? Yeah, your Boston Celtics made a big-time trade a few days from the NBA trade deadline, acquiring Nikola Vucevic and a future second-round pick for Anfernee Simmons and a second-round pick going to the Chicago Bulls. You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith, and we're here to break down this big-time deal made by Brad Stevens to get a front court upgrade and shave some money off the salary cap for your Boston Celtics. More to come in just a moment, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel because when the Celtics make moves, we make videos. This is why you subscribe to the channel and join the 55,000 people that have already made this their number one stop for the Celtics content they need on YouTube every single day. So hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on because if the Celtics make any more moves, you know we're bringing you more content here on the channel. All right, man. Boston Celtics trade for Nikola Vucevic, a guy who, honestly, we've seen throughout the years have quite a few jersey swaps with the Boston Celtics. A guy who's kind of hovered and been a trade candidate for the past few years with the Chicago Bulls, now ends up in Beantown to kind of give the Celtics a starting center for the rest of the season, man. And what do we know about Nikola Vucevic? He can put the ball in the bucket. Solid stretch big. He'll be able to space the floor. Shot 40% from deep last year. 38% clip in 2025-26. And we know he can gobble up rebounds on the defensive end as well. As far as his defense goes, though, we know there's a lot left to be desired with Nikola Vucevic here, but he's a great back-to-the-basket player, an underrated passer and distributor of the basketball as well. So I understand the thought process here. I feel more so than this being a big-time upgrade for the Celtics here, it is a salary-shaving move. The Celtics get under the first apron by making this deal, which we will talk about more later in terms of them making more moves here, which is a few days ago to go into the deadline, and maybe some things going on after the trade deadline too. But Nikola Vucevic is on the Boston Celtics now, and presumably will start at center for the rest of the season. Now, what do we know about who the Celtics have been targeting here at the big man spot? Well, we had heard that they had some level of interest in Nick Claxton, and what stuck out about Nick Claxton? Well, he took a really big leap as a distributor and a playmaker, getting that assist number up to 4 a night. Well, Nikola Vucevic hovers around 3 to 4 assists a game for his entire career. He's always been a smart, high IQ player with the ball in his hands. He tends to make the right plays, but we do know as far as the defensive end goes, he really can't move all that well. But with the way the Celtics look as far as their depth goes now at the center spot, they have Vucevic for that big-time offensive scoring punch down low. You got Neemias Queta who can still play defense, block shots, and rebound. And then Luka Garza takes the center 3 spot. Amari Williams, we saw, had a nice 2-game insanity run, and then he was quickly moved out of the rotation there. But could Joe Mazzulla kind of run a bit of an offensive-defensive kind of platoon here between Vuce and Neemias Queta? Because I don't anticipate Neemias Queta to just go back down to playing, 15, 20 minutes a game. I bet you that we see Vucevic play about 25. Maybe we see Neemias Queta play about 20, and then who knows? Maybe Luka Garza gets in there for a few minutes here and there. But another thing that is signaled by this trade from my point of view, this is a signal that we're going to see a Jayson Tatum return at some point this season. I feel like the Celtics didn't feel a lot of pressure to lower their tax and then to lower their salary cap. So keeping Anfernee Simmons was certainly on the table, but they found an opportunity to upgrade at a position of need. Maybe not the big upgrade that they were looking for, but they upgraded and shaved money at the same time. So I would anticipate the Celtics are thinking about a Jayson Tatum return here down the stretch of the season. Look, straight up, guys, I didn't love this deal when I saw it. I'm surprised that this is the guy that Brad ended up targeting. We had heard a couple of rumors about the Bulls and Celtics being in a conversation surrounding these two players, but Chicago wanted way more draft capital than was actually given up. So I like it from that point of view, but as a fit on this team in terms of the big being able to move around the floor and just be quick laterally, that's what Joe Mazzulla likes, and that's not really what Nikola Vucevic provides. So I didn't like it right away, but at the end of the day, in Brad, we trust. Brad Stevens is what we know Brad Stevens to be is a basketball savant. And has he ever really led us astray to this point? No. And I will tell you this. What comes next for the Boston Celtics will ultimately determine whether or not this was a great move by Brad Stevens or not. So, with that being said, just give you my initial thoughts. We're going to keep talking about this on today's show. What's your one-word reaction to the Celtics trading for Nikola Vucevic? Comment down below your one-word reaction to the trade. My one word, meh. meh. Is that even a word? I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but that's kind of how I felt, man. I just was expecting somebody like Daniel Gafford, or if they wanted to go after a center who could compete with Neemias Queta, maybe a Day'Ron Sharp to shave even more money off your books, or an Yves Missi, or maybe they just wanted to go with a Nick Claxton who could be somebody that's on the Jays timeline here. $25 million a year, though, that's a big-time commitment salary-wise. Vucevic only makes $21 million, and he's on an expiring contract. So he's going to be off the books at the end of this year. Boston's going to be way more financially free. They'll be under the luxury tax when the summer rolls around. So a lot more flexibility for the future here to keep this core alive and in championship contention. But he cannot move defensively. Yep, pull the ball out. ISO. Let me get this Vuce switch. Blow by immediately to the basket. Like, it's not that he doesn't try, and I don't even know if he does try all that much, but if he did, it's still embarrassing because he cannot move on that end. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the fit. We'll talk more about that when we see Vuce suit up in Boston for the first time. Let's talk about the financial ramifications and what this means for the Celtics long term, because Brian Robb of Mass Live said this part. The other aspect of this deal that sticks out is the financial component. The Celtics trimmed off about $6 million from their payroll since Vucevic only makes $21.5 million in the final year of his deal. That saves Boston about $22 million in luxury tax penalties as well. And for new ownership, that's pretty substantial. However, they are still $6 million over the tax line with the trade deadline still 2 days away, so more moves will be coming if Boston hopes to dodge the luxury tax. Like I said, I will wait until Thursday to fully assess this move and give it my full grade. I'm not going to sit here and say this is the worst move of all time because Boston could end up getting a guy in Vuce who's a minor upgrade at center and also gets under the luxury tax here with a move or two left with 2 days to go until the deadline. So the jury is still out for now. And at the same time, it also feels like okay, we shaved a bunch of money off the books. We got a guy who could start at center. And if it works out and he fits on the team and he plays a little bit above what we're expecting of him, then you know what? That's great. If it works out, awesome. Maybe you bring him back next season on a really cheaper deal. He's already talked about potentially taking a back seat later on in his career, being a guy who comes off the bench, being a guy who maybe takes a little bit less money on his next deal. I can't imagine he's going to get more than $21 million. And the Celtics also have the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception at their hands now as well. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk about Anfernee Simons because I want to give him his flowers. I really, really enjoyed him as a Boston Celtic here, especially over the past few weeks. And then we'll talk about more moves that Brad Stevens can make here in the coming days and weeks. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And with the big game fast approaching, right now is the last time to cash in before America's biggest sporting event with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, this is the last chance to get into football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats. Prize Picks is the best, though, because of the features that they offer. They'll have demons and goblins, which either increase or decrease your payouts, but make it harder or easier to green out your squares. They also have an early payouts feature, so if your player or lineup gets off to a hot start, you can cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Also, they love to just make it easier for you guys to win real money in real time. They're throwing out max discounts left and right, and one for the big game as well, where your guy, Drake May, only has to throw for 1 passing yard to green out this square. So I threw it in my lineup, of course, which you can copy with the brand new community and feed tab on Prize Picks. I got Drake May with that max discount. I got Jackson Smith-Njigba, more than receiving yards. I got Kenneth Walker to get in the end zone, more than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. That is a goblin, though, so it lowers the payout, but it's more likely to hit. And then Sam Darnold, more than passing yards as well. You can tell my picks or fade them. Just do it at Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Man, this is sad, guys. I was really starting to like Anfernee Simons on this team, especially since the calendar shifted to 2026. I mean, he has improved as a defender. If you look at some of the advanced analytics with Simons, being the closest defender to somebody, it rivals guys like Derek White on this team. It rivals Hugo Gonzalez on this team, two of the better defenders on the Celtics roster. So clearly he was making more of an effort on that end. He was making more plays on the defensive end. He was getting in Joe Mazzulla's good graces, and rightfully so, because this man was on fire, making a case for Sixth Man of the Year. Since the calendar turned to 2026, in the 15 games in January and the one game he played in February where he put up 27 points, he's been averaging 17 a night. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 44% from long range. I mean, he has been really, really good. And now he's gone. And I said on yesterday's show, the more days that pass by, the less I want to trade Anfernee Simons. I thought he could have come back on a smaller deal in the offseason, but I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case anymore. And clearly, with the Celtics kind of surveying the league for Anfernee Simons trade suitors, clearly the league didn't value him as highly as maybe Boston would have liked, because you settled for Nikola Vucevic here. You didn't go out there and get a Ivica Zubac. You didn't go out there and get a Daniel Gafford, a Nick Claxton, a Jakob Poeltl. None of those guys were on the block for Anfernee Simons, it seems. So they settled with Nikola Vucevic. Anfernee Simons isn't going to be a Celtic legend by any means or anything like that, but I really did enjoy the scoring punch that he brought to this team. Now, I will also say that with Tatum potentially coming back here, it opens the door for Anfernee Simons to be a bit more expendable, because he's not going to see the numbers and the volume of shot attempts that he gets normally when Jayson Tatum comes back. So I understand that you're not going to, like, this is the highest his value is going to be, and still only net Nikola Vucevic. So when Tatum comes back, you wouldn't see the numbers that you'd be seeing from Anfernee Simons. It made sense for Brad Stevens to move on from him here. But are you guys upset about it? Are you guys upset that the Celtics traded Anfernee Simons? Be honest for me down in the comment section. Y for yes or N for no, and if you're upset that Boston dealt Anfernee Simons away to Chicago or anywhere, or not. Because we're going to talk about some more moves that the Boston Celtics could be making here in the coming days, maybe even after the trade deadline passes. We'll talk about that in a second, because the Celtics now trading Anfernee Simons away, but also improving the front court. They need a backup ball handler again all of a sudden. They need a guy who can score and get buckets off the bench, because that's what Anfernee Simons did for this team. Seriously, he was making a Sixth Man of the Year case. That won't be something the Celtics have at their disposal anymore. Now, in terms of who else could be traded from Boston, Sam Hauser's a name, but I'm not so sure that they deal him. He's a 45% three-point shooter. Like, he's been killing it over the last few weeks. Chris Boucher, though, he's been a name that we had heard in a report yesterday that had been drawing trade interest around the league, specifically from the Philadelphia 76ers, but they said multiple teams have had interest in Chris Boucher. So this could be a guy that gets you closer to the luxury tax line by moving off of his deal, about $3 million, and you probably just net back a second-round pick in the deal. So that could be done, or they could package him and maybe somebody else for a veteran minimum player or something along those lines that nets even more of a salary cap shedding for Boston. But I'm not in that camp anymore. I don't really feel like they need to get under the luxury tax line at this point, because they're still going to face penalties at the end of the season. But once Vuč's money comes off the books, like they're going to be under the luxury tax no matter what. So I'm all for making another upgrade to this roster, and that would be in the form of Naji Marshall. It's been a name that we've heard the Celtics been interested in over the last few days. He handles the ball a ton in Dallas. He can score in the mid-range. He can get to the rim. I think he's a good three-point shooter, but the efficiencies aren't there this season. And he only makes $9 million. He's easily acquirable. He's a guy who can handle the ball off the bench, but also be a switchable defender, like be able to play off the ball too. Naji Marshall doesn't really have a lot of holes in his game, and if the Mavs are willing to deal him for maybe a protected first-round pick of some kind, I'd be all in favor of getting that deal done. Now, if the Celtics aren't able to swing another trade by Thursday, don't worry. We still have a chance to improve this roster, because what making this trade does gets you under the first apron, and that is massive in terms of the flexibility that you have as a franchise trying to improve. The Celtics are now under the first apron, which means they can sign any player off of the buyout market regardless of their previous salary. So a lot of teams above the first apron, above the second apron, they can't make certain buyout signings because guys are making like something along the lines of, I think it's around $10 million previously. Then they get bought out, and they've been making a vet minimum deal, but those teams in the aprons are not allowed to go out there and make those signings. And the Celtics used to be one of those teams. They're not anymore. And that's not the only benefit that Boston gets from making this deal. Here's what the Celtics look like salary-wise post-Vuce trade. Shout out to my guy Yassi on Twitter for making this graphic here. in other notes of the Celtics being under the first apron, they can now increase their payroll in trades so they can bring back more money in a deal than they're sending out. That is incredibly valuable. They have 3 second-round picks left. They can open up the non-taxpayer mid-level exception like I alluded to earlier. That's around $14 to $15 million. And then, like I said, they can sign any player in the buyout market. They're only $2.2 million below the first apron. They have a $17.7 million tax penalty, so they would have been facing something along the lines of $40 million. But now it's more like 17, which is a little bit more easy to digest for this new ownership group. And look, they're only $6 million away from that luxury tax spot. So it's certainly feasible if Brad feels like he can improve this team a little bit more by also shedding $6 million off of the salary books. So there is more moves to be coming here after Boston makes a deal that sends Nikola Vucevic to the Beantown for Anfernee Simons and his expiring contract. So 2 expirings get swapped here, 2 second-round picks get swapped here, and Boston gets an upgrade in the front court while losing some bench scoring and ball handling as well. That being said, name a player you want the Celtics to trade for now. 2 days to go until the NBA trade deadline. Comment down below the next move that you want Brad Stevens to make and what it is. That will do it for today's show. Give me a follow over on Twitter. I tweeted about this trade the minute it dropped. I'll keep tweeting about the Celtics all season long. And hit that subscribe button as well. YouTube.com/CelticsTV for the latest and greatest on your C's all season long. See you guys next time. And as always, let's go C's.